Hey everybody, welcome back to Two Nerds and a Podcast. Today, here on Spooky Month, I said it correctly, I didn't say Spooky Week this time. We are talking some classic movie monsters. We're talking, I would say, I was going to do the big three, but then I stopped researching as soon as Casey's internet decided we weren't going to record the other day. So I only did the big two, which is Dracula and Frankenstein. Um, for those of you who don't know, Frankenstein is my favorite movie monster pretty much of all time. I have read the book. I love the book. I love Mary Shelley. I love pretty much every iteration of Frankenstein I have seen. Um, so we're gonna talk Frankenstein first. Classic, and then I also have some fun because we're talking Dracula and Frankenstein, specifically like the Universal era, because that was their two big horror movies that came out were both Dracula and Frankenstein. I also have some fun ghosty tidbits about Universal themselves because
Yay!
if you've ever been to Universal Studios Hollywood, they always kind of give you some fun facts, some spooky things that have been happening. So some of them I know Casey and I both have heard numerous times, but I did find a video that had some other ones. Some of them sound more true than others. So we'll get into that a bit later. But when I was doing some Googling about Dracula and Frankenstein, I was actually really surprised that Dracula actually came first as far as the movies went, the Universal
Mm-mm.
movies.
Yeah, and it came out in like
Um,
the 30s too, didn't it?
yeah, it came out in
That's crazy.
1931.
That is crazy. That's so long
Um,
ago.
yeah, but it was weird because Frankenstein actually also came out in 1931. So they both came out the same year. I also
Huh.
didn't realize that both Dracula and Frankenstein, so they were both books.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Dracula was written in 1897 and Frankenstein was written in 1818. So Frankenstein is the older
Whoa. Very
of the
old.
two. Um, and Mary Shelley is often forgotten in the sci-fi uh, kind of genre of books, but she is definitely what I would consider the mother of science fiction. Um, because she wrote and published Frankenstein before a lot of famous sci-fi novelists. I also
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize when she originally published Frankenstein, she did it anonymously, so nobody knew it was her originally.
Huh.
And I think that
That's
was just a
interesting.
sign of the times because heaven forbid, like women
A
write
woman writes,
anything,
God
yeah,
forbid
that
a
has
woman does
thoughts.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't let this witch have thoughts.
Yeah. So I think that's why it was anonymous at first, but I think a few years like after they did like a republication and a re-edit of the book, and so then it was under her name.
They were like, a woman wrote this? What?
Yeah, but
That's crazy.
her husband was a radical poet. And so he was very encouraging of her, like writing this novel. I know many of you probably know Mary Shelley got the idea and the brainstorm for Frankenstein when she spent the summer. What was it? Was it Lake Geneva? Lord Byron, who is also a famous author, was like, "Come to like my summer home in Lake Geneva, and we'll hang out and have a great time." Um, and so Mary Shelley, her husband, and her son were all like, "Sure," and her sister, I believe, also went. Um, but basically, it was her, Lord Byron, and I think a couple other writers. And Lord Byron was like, "Hey, we should," because the big thing was to like sit around, the bonfire, and have just a good time, and get a little tipsy and all that. And they were like, we should write ghost stories for each other because they were swapping like German ghost stories back and forth, and they were like, we should make our own because as a creative person, that is what you do: is you look at something, you go, I can do that.
Yeah.
You
I can
sometimes you
DIY
probably
that.
Yeah, you're like, "I got it." And so that's basically what they did, and it did take Mary Shelley, like, almost half the summer to come up with Frankenstein, but she scared the crap out of everybody, and then her husband was like, "You should write that down and, like, write a book," and she was like, "Oh."
Write that down, write that down.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I love to see a very supportive husband. When I was kind of like digging into Mary Shelley's past, because I know just basically like that point in her life onward, um, but she, like many people of the 1800s, her mom died when she was 11, so she didn't have a mom. So her father raised her, but he was, again, he was also radical, um, a radical writer, and so he believed in educating all of his children, no matter what their gender was, but she didn't have, like, a traditional schooling, so he just kind of, like, taught her kinda willy-nilly, like, what he was interested in and, philosophy and things like that, um, but he had, like, a little, like, following, and her future husband was one of his followers, and I knew,
Oh.
her father had some kind of connection. What I didn't realize, Mary Shelley's husband's name is Percy. When Percy and Mary first met, he was married. He was a married man, and she was like, but I like,"
Scandalous.
yeah, she's like, "But I like that one," and her dad was like, "Could you choose somebody else?"
She was like,
Like,
no.
yeah, she's like, "I don't really like anybody else, though. I like this one." And he's like, yeah, he's married, so, you probably, like, shouldn't do that." And Mary Shelley looked at him and went, "You know what? I'm gonna do it." So her and Percy ran away to be
What? How old
together.
was she?
I think she was a teenager. She wasn't, like, super young, but she wasn't, like, she was probably, I would think, like, 16 to 18, somewhere in there.
The
Um,
1800s were crazy.
yeah, let me Google real quick because I actually, in my giant thing of notes, I did not write that down. Okay, she was 19.
Okay, that's not bad actually.
But that's when they actually got married, when they, some people say that, "Oh, they eloped." You can't elope to a married man. I'm just saying. But she was 16. So,
And how old was he? Does it say how old he was?
I think he was in his early 20s.
Oh, the
So,
1800s were so crazy.
yeah, so I mean, like, he wasn't like ancient or anything, which is good because a lot of times they are.
Yeah,
Let me see if it'll actually tell me. I
not
don't
like
know. It won't
real,
tell
real
me.
scandalous like some of the people in the 1800s. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
it's not like
crazy.
she was 10 and he was 35 or anything like that. Um, he was a student underneath her dad, so, again, not super, like, it's not, I mean, it could be worse, and a lot of times it was. Um, but yeah, so he was married, they ran away. Unfortunately, they had a lot of, like, trouble conceiving children. She had quite a few miscarriages, which is really sad. Um, But, so they were originally in England. They, quote unquote, eloped to Italy. So they were in Italy for quite a while, and then, apparently, Percy's wife, his actual wife that he left for Mary, she unalived herself,
Oh my
which is super
goodness.
sad. They had 2 children together. She unalived herself, and then so Percy and Mary thought, "Okay, well, we can come back to England now because she's no longer there, and we can take your two kids." So not only did he, like, leave his wife, he also left 2 children, um, but so they decided they were, and Mary was very supportive about, "Yes, I will accept the children." Mary Shelley had a very awful experience with her stepmother. So she was not that way with Percy's children, which is nice. She was like, "I'm gonna break the cycle of crazy women being mean to their stepchildren."
Hmm.
Which, 10 out of 10 for her. She probably should have done it with not a married man, but
Well, you know.
um but yeah, so they came back to England, and then they went to the lake. It's where they created Frankenstein. Let me see. There was something else I wanted to talk about, but maybe I didn't write it down. But yeah, so I mean that's pretty much Mary Shelley's past in a nutshell. I know like a decent amount about Mary. I did not realize that she was after a married man though. I was like, girl. Unfortunately, she also died very young. I think she was 53 when
That's
she
actually pretty
died.
old for, like, the times,
For
though.
the
I
times,
mean,
yeah.
yeah. Like, that's
Yeah.
young, but, like,
For
for the
that period,
1800s.
it was pretty
Yeah.
decent. Like by today's standards, it's very young.
Right.
Um, Especially because I'm pretty sure Percy outlived her. So, and he was older. But, yeah. But I also thought it was really cool that it was originally published anonymously.
Mhm.
And that, the next publication, she put her name on it. Um, with both the support of her father and her husband, which was nice. I also like that even though she ran away with a married man, and then she didn't end up marrying him. They actually did get married when they moved back to England. They actually did get married officially, but that her father actually still like spoke to her and stuff like that because normally that brings shame upon the family. But I
Right.
think because he was more on the radical side of things, that he was just like, I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, it
Um,
is what it is. What can I do?
yeah. He's just like, alrighty then. But yeah, and then when I was reading about the history of the Universal film, which came out in 1931, it was actually based off a play that was written by Peggy Webling in 1927. So Peggy took the story Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and wrote a stage play for it, and had it performed, put it on Broadway. I don't know if it was actually Broadway or something similar. I don't think it had any music in it, so I don't think that it could technically be on Broadway. But you know what I mean. Um,
Something like
you
that.
know what I got. You know what I'm saying. But it was actually very successful for a couple of years. And so they were kind of like, ooh, maybe we can make this into a movie. But Universal, we're gonna steer to the left a little bit. Universal actually made Dracula into a movie first. Dracula in general, ever since it was written from Bram Stoker, has had a lot of controversy around it. It was considered very scary and very scandalous for the 1890s. I mean, if you read it now, you don't really think about it that way.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, just by a lot of things that, like, Game of Thrones and, like, things like that, that is just so, like, wild and out there, you wouldn't think Dracula was that way. But a lot of the audience found it absolutely terrifying. I did see that a lot of the audience also didn't like the fact that it took place in London, that it was supposed to be in England. A lot of people were like, that's too close to home. It should be like in like an unknown land. So I think it creeped a lot of people out that
Yeah, they're
it
like,
felt very
Dracula's
real.
literally out here. What are you doing?"
Yeah, yeah. And then Dracula is based off of the amazing Vlad the Impaler, whose favorite form of execution was indeed impaling people's heads on a stick, very much like Joffrey did to Ned
Oh
Stark.
my god, it's Ned Stark.
Oh my gosh.
Insert
Um,
picture of Ned Stark's
Ned
head
Stark
on
here on a steak.
stick.
But I also didn't realize, so like Vlad the Impaler has always been like presented as a terrible person because he executed like a lot of people, a
Mhm.
lot of people. But actually, like in Romanian history, because Vlad the Paler is from Romania, he's considered a hero because he brought so much peace and wealth to the land, to the country. So he's
They're like, "Just
revered.
ignore all of the people that he murdered.
Yeah, they're
Um,
like, he
just
had to
ignore
do what
that.
he had
Don't
to
look at that."
do. Like it's
Yeah.
like it is what it is, and you're like, oh, okay. But yeah, I was pretty surprised to see that he was considered a hero. But I mean, it would make sense. Like somebody's protecting your country. I
Mhm.
mean, to be fair, a lot of US presidents are considered amazing and they did absolutely terrible things. So,
Mhm.
or you get people like Christopher Columbus, where you're like, wow, he like discovered the world, but he also like killed all the native people of America. Like,
Yeah, but he also, like, literally stole everything and was
yeah,
like, "No,
stole
this is
all the
mine now."
land, killed the natives. Yeah, it was just like not a good time. But that
Oh,
was,
oh, history.
yeah, that people always conveniently forget. Um, but yeah, so Bram Stoker took heavy influence from Vlad the Impaler, wrote Dracula, which was also turned into a stage play. And I didn't realize that Bela Lugosi, who plays Dracula in the Dracula movie, actually originally played Dracula on stage. So he
What?
was
That's
already the
cool.
stage Dracula. So when they were turning around to make it into a film, he was like, "Well, I could just do it because
I'm
I'm
already
already
him.
yeah, I already got it." And so they went, "Yeah, sure. Cool." And then actually a few years prior to the Lugosi movie, the movie Nosferatu, which they're actually remaking, I believe it comes out this Christmas.
What?
Um, yeah, but I didn't realize. So I've always heard of the original Nosferatu. I didn't realize that that was basically a ripoff of Dracula.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because so originally Bram Stoker died and his wife outlived him, and so she was in charge of like his estate and all his royalties and all that. And so when Nosferatu came out, they did not pay copyright or anything for that. They literally just stole the content and were like, "We're going to make a movie." And she was like, I don't think so. Like, first of all, you didn't ask if you could make this movie or use this story, but also two, you didn't pay me anything. So she took him to court. She sued him. She sued the people who made Nosferatu.
I like how the people in 1800s are like, "I'm just gonna take this. This is mine."
Yeah,
That's
they're
probably
like,
how
this is
trademarking happened because they're like, "This is mine now."
yeah,
Sorry, I don't
yeah.
know what to tell you.
Yeah, so they basically went, "What are you gonna do?" And it's like, "Watch me, watch me. I'm gonna take your butt to court. Is what I'm gonna do about it." And I believe she won. So she won everything that was due, and Nosferatu was basically wiped off of the face of the earth. It was not allowed to be in theaters. They destroyed a bunch of DVD. Like they destroyed, I guess it would have been VHS, but they destroyed a lot of stuff that had Nosferatu on it, which I thought was very interesting. I didn't real like. I'm so glad that she took him to court. That she was like, you know what? Don't mess with my husband's legacy. We ain't doing
So then
this. We
how
ain't
did it
playing.
like how are they able to like still do stuff with that
Well,
then?
I think somebody probably eventually, because I'm pretty sure she won, so she probably got like royalties and stuff from it. So now that the paperwork has been figured out that she is getting paid her money, she probably went fine, whatever, do it. But now you're
Yeah,
gonna have
I
to
guess
pay me
that's true.
like
I guess
double or
that's true.
something like that, you know?
Yeah. Be like, "You can have this, but give me money."
Yeah. So she probably went like, you could have had it for $5, but now you're gonna pay me 500, and they probably were not very happy about it. But that's what you get for stealing people's stuff, especially the wrong people's stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so Bela Lugosi, whose wife is modern day hero, but he went from being stage Dracula to being movie Dracula, and apparently he was originally considered to be Dr. Frankenstein in Frankenstein.
What?
Yeah, they were like, well, because it was kind of a big thing back then because there was a very small pool of actors, so they were that everybody was just kind of in everything. Like Universal like employed like 20. It's like the BBC nowadays where they've got like 5 actors, so everybody's in it, everything,
Mhm.
and they have like 3 costumes and like 2 props, and so it's just like recycled in various different ways. Um But the original producers, and I think the original director, they had Frankenstein as something completely different. Like, if you see the 1931 Frankenstein, it's in black and white. It does have sound. It was one of the first, like sound movies. Um, and it very much kind of stuck to Mary Shelley's version, where the question of the movie was like the morality of people, and like, is it right to create something. Now the movie did have what I consider to be the dumb version of the monster, because in the book, which was mind-blowing to me, the monster is extremely intelligent. Like,
Mhm.
extreme, like, he's literally been resurrected for like a week, and he's already talking and has all of these philosophical thoughts, and he's really just trying to like chase down his creator to be like, why did you create me? I don't understand why you would do this to me, kind of thing. So he's having basically an existential crisis the entire
Yeah,
time.
it's me every day.
Yeah, like totes relatable. But in the movie, they made him a dumb monster. He has like
Mhm, mhm,
some
mhm.
philosophical questions, but he doesn't speak. He doesn't have like really like there's nothing happening in the facial expressions. He does not emote, and he like suffocates everybody to death except for the one little girl in the movie, which makes me laugh. He encounters a little girl who's playing by like a river, and she's like playing with flowers and stuff, and he doesn't, I mean, like most people, he doesn't know what to do with a child. He's just like, what is this?
What
um
is this small thing?
yeah, he's like, and like she's like throwing things into the water, so he's like, oh, I'll just throw you into the water. So he literally picks up this little girl and yeets her into the river, and she drowns. So that's like his first fatality in the movie, which it
He's like,
cracks me
"I
up.
was just trying to play. We were just doing the same thing. How is mine
Yeah,
different?"
yeah, and he's like, I don't understand what's happening. Um, but I guess the like original pitch for the Frankenstein movie was that basically Frankenstein's monster was literally just, it was all blood and gore and having him terrorize everybody, and it was like truly just like a monster movie. Not, there was no like story
Plot.
necessarily behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, no plot, just monster. Which, I mean, for some things works, but you don't want, if you're trying to ride on the wave of the success of Dracula, which is about a very intelligent vampire who's, out there killing people but also surviving, you don't want to just make like a horror, like, I'm just gonna throw fake blood at you this whole time kind of movie. So Universal was like, no, no, I don't know. And so this other guy, let me see, did I write his name down? I don't think I did. I did not. But basically, this other guy was like, "Okay, Universal, I know you already like had somebody for this project, but listen, I wrote a better. I actually wrote a plot for this movie, and I have some ideas. So if you want to like just like let me take over." And Universal went, yeah, yeah, we'll do that, because they really wanted, they Dracula had so much success that they were like, yes, we need to like continue to feed into this genre of horror movies. Um and so it was rewritten, recasted. So unfortunately, Bela Lugosi was like kicked out of this
Oh,
production.
rude.
So yeah, but the director casted Boris Karloff, who is famous for being Frankenstein. He literally is Frankenstein's monster.
Mm,
Also,
mhm,
I'm
mhm,
gonna just
mhm.
call Frankenstein's monster Frankenstein, because it's just how it is. I know people get really like, it's Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein is the scientist. But fun fact for you that Peggy Webling, who wrote the play, she is the one that actually said, we're gonna look at the scientist and the monster almost as two halves of the same person, and that is why they are both called
Ah.
Frankenstein. So if you're talking about the book, yes, it is the monster and Dr. Frankenstein. But if you're talking about the movie or the play, they are both Frankenstein in their own right. So we're siding with Peggy on this one, okay?
Yeah,
Gosh
you go,
dang it,
Peggy.
Peggy.
Gosh dang it, Peggy.
um, but yes, so we have Boris Karloff as the monster, who is iconic. But the other thing, which I actually really love, is that the 1931 Frankenstein movie brought to life one of probably the most iconic horror movie characters that was not in the book and was also not in the stage play, and that is the character of Igor, Dr. Frankenstein's sidekick. Igor
Igor.
is was purely made for the movie. He was written for the
What?
movie. But his position in that movie has like since changed the way horror movies are done and who they include. And so I love that Igor is a movie specific thing, but also that nobody can really say like, oh well, he's not in the book, and oh, I don't know why they added that. Igor to me is such like a crucial piece of Frankenstein
Mhm.
movies. Both this version and pretty much every iteration I have ever seen, Igor always tends to be one of the best characters. My favorite example of this is the Victor Frankenstein movie, which stars James McAvoy as Victor Frankenstein and stars Daniel Radcliffe as Igor. His like Victor Frankenstein, I know it's called Victor Frankenstein, but it truly is about Igor's journey into becoming like his own person, especially as like a hunchback in the 1800s. It's
Mhm.
not a good time to be a hunchback,
I don't
honestly.
think it's honestly, it's probably never a good time to be a
That's
hunchback.
true, but like at least like today, like they're like working on like how to have you
Right, there's
not
new
be a
technology.
hunchback,
Yeah.
like whereas like before they were just like, ew, you're a hunchback to the streets.
Right, get out of here.
Yeah. So it was really cool to see that Igor was added for the film. It's one of those things that like I feel like a lot of movie studios don't do correctly anymore when
Mhm.
they add characters into things, especially stuff that has a big following, like something like Frankenstein or Dracula or things like that, where they just like start sprinkling in characters and you're like, why are you here? Like,
Yeah.
what are you
What are
adding to
you what are
this?
you doing?
Yeah, like no. Um but yeah, so that was kind of my mouth vomit about Frankenstein. I love Mary Shelley. I love Frankenstein. Um and so much iconic like visual, I'm trying to think of the word. I don't know how to do words, but you know what I mean. Like iconic pictures, iconic makeup, iconic effects. Like the whole of Frankenstein is done with practical effects, but also they started using newer technology for like the lightning and things like that. So just amazing costuming and things like that. And again, it's really like Dracula and Frankenstein. And I am also going to add like the Wolfman in there. It's the only one I didn't do any research on. Um, those three, and I would say probably the Phantom of the Opera, are like the truly iconic
The
movies.
OGs.
Yeah, that really like pushed Universal into being like the masters of horror,
Mhm.
and really kicking this off. So, since we're talking about Universal, I have some tippity things,
Some fun
um,
facts.
some fun facts, purely because I know Casey loves her some fun facts, and
I
these are
do love me
spooky
some
fun
fun facts.
facts.
Even
Um,
better when they're spooky.
yes. So I think, let me see. Hold on. I think the one that you and I have heard the most is the one about Lon Chaney, who is known for the Phantom of the Opera. He is the man with a thousand faces. Like anything in early Universal films where somebody is wearing very heavy prosthetics, and is just like amazingly acting through them, it's probably Lon Chaney, like 99.9% of the time.
Mhm.
Um, but In stage 28, which unfortunately isn't there anymore, it is torn down now, so you can't see it. Um, it was always rumored to be haunted, especially after Lon Chaney's death. So a lot of people say that Lon Chaney is haunting stage 28. Yeah, a
You're
lot
crazy.
of cast and crew over the years, not even just like right after he died, but just like even like before. I think they tore it down like within the last like 10 years. So even up until like now, people, there's a bunch of like catwalks on the inside, so that the lighting crew and the camera crew can like work around
Mm-hmm.
this giant soundstage. So they often see somebody running around the catwalks
Creepy.
with a big candelabra in their hand, which is
Oh,
one of
that's
the props
creepy.
from Phantom of the Opera. um so they say that he haunts stage 28, but they also say there's a second ghost in stage 28, which I've also heard this one before. Um, Apparently, in 1925, an electrician fell off of the catwalks to his death. And so many people say that his ghost haunts
I feel like
stage
I've heard that one
28 as
too.
well. That one, I'm pretty sure they probably say on the tram quite often. Um, But because they say that people see, like, a man basically dressed in, like, 20s, like, styled, like, workers' clothes.
Ooh,
Um,
spooky.
yeah, yeah, super spooky. I don't know if either of them still haunt Universal since that stage isn't there,
What do you
but,
know what's there where the stage was? Like, did they put
um,
anything there?
I believe so. I wanna say it might be offices now. Because I believe, if I remember correctly, which I probably don't, stage 28, you know when you get on the tram tour and you're going past the fire station?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it used to be the one of the stages like right in front before you make like a right to go to 4 Points and all that. I think it used to be one
Mm-hmm.
of those stages. I can't remember if they tore it down to build offices or if it was one of those
Probably.
buildings in the fire.
Oh,
But there is something there. So I don't know if that building is now haunted or if they like when the stage went up got knocked down and everything got destroyed, if their spirits were released from that.
someone call Zach Bagans. We need this for research
Yeah, Zach,
purposes.
and then please Zach Bagans, please take us with you.
Please invite
Um
us. We will give you a shout out
yeah.
because he needs that.
Both here on both on the podcast and on Instagram.
Yeah.
And maybe a little TikTok action if you ask nicely. Let me see.
Oh, they took it down to build Super Mario World.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, I haven't noticed anything in Super Mario World that's haunted, but I also don't work there. But I guess we'd have to ask somebody who works there. Um, and then the next fun fact I have for you, which I thought was really interesting. So, in the studio tour, there is a section dedicated to the giant Boeing 747 plane that they destroyed for Steven
Mm-hmm.
Spielberg's War of the Worlds. And honestly, that's one of like the spookier parts of the studio tour in my opinion. It always has been kind of spooky because it's weird to think about a giant 747, as Spielberg always says at this part of the tour, like just coming down on a random neighborhood. Um but if you've ever looked at towards, I believe, the front of the plane, there is a skeleton dressed as like an old-fashioned aviator hanging out of the window. Apparently, that is supposed to kind of appease the ghost of somebody who died at the opening of Universal Studios Backlot Tour in 1915.
What?
Yeah, his name was Frank Stites. And he was hired to basically put on an air show for the opening of the
Oh.
backlot tour. But before the day even came, he was just practicing and his plane crashed. He crashed
Oh
and died on the lot.
my gosh, that's so tragic.
Yeah. And so again, a lot of like people who work there, some of, people who not only work in the park but also work on the movies have said they have seen a man in an aviator
They're
costume like just randomly walking around, and then they go to confront him and he just disappears.
like, why is this pilot in our
Yeah, cuz
lot?
it's always at times where there shouldn't be anybody there. Like there shouldn't just be a random person walking around. Like it's not a live set, it's not, and it's near where the actual plane crash is actually near where the Boeing 747 is.
Creepy.
Yeah, and so like word got around from all of the people that work there, and so they put the skeleton dressed up as the aviator and they haven't seen him since.
They were like, "Here's a plane. Here you go. You can live in this
Mhm.
plane for the
Yeah.
rest of your undead life."
Yeah. And apparently that skeleton has actually only been there since 2015.
What?
Yeah, I guess the director of Horror Nights that year, he kept hearing so many people like whispering about it and talking about it, and he's like, "What the heck?" And there had been so many employees that had seen this ghost that they were like, "We gotta put him somewhere." So that's why the
Give him a
so why
final
the
resting
skeleton.
place.
Yeah, yeah, like final like recognition, like we see you. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow,
We
that's
know you died in a plane
crazy.
crash. Here's a plane crash for you
Yeah.
to just live in.
Yep.
In
Forever.
this, yeah.
And that has seemed to appease the ghost because nobody has talked about it since.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, was he like doing anything? Like, was he like being a menace? Because like, I feel like if he wasn't being a menace, and he's just chilling.
Yeah, it didn't say. I would imagine he probably wasn't, but again, I think because he was appearing when there definitely shouldn't have been anybody there. So I think he was just freaking people out by showing up at like the worst time. But I think they probably did it just to keep him happy. I don't know if like anybody was ever like really bothered by him, but maybe I think he's happy enough. He's just chilling now. He's just like, cool. You put a skeleton. I'll take it. And then let's see. The next one, which I feel like I have heard, but it's about Lucille Ball. Apparently she haunts various places, not just the Universal backlot. Um, but she used to have a dressing room on the lot because back in the day, like everybody like had a dressing room, like a
Mhm.
permanent dressing room at Universal. So apparently when they are like around her dressing room, people will see a lady with bright red hair and she doesn't do anything like menacing. She's normally smiling or she'll like shuffle things around just to be like, hey, I'm still
I'm
here.
here.
Yeah. But she also does it in the I Love Lucy house that's on the Paramount lot.
Weird. I wonder how they haunt two places.
Yeah, so I'm kind of surprised because normally, at least from my knowledge from Supernatural, ghosts typically are very much tied to an
Hmm.
object or a place. You
Yeah,
really
like one
can't
place.
like, yeah. So I don't know if maybe if some of her stuff like goes between Universal and Paramount, like like oh, can we borrow this for the tour? Yes, can we borrow that for
She just
for this
latches
tour?
on.
Yeah, and they're just like passing stuff back and forth, and so she gets passed back and forth as well. Um, but yeah, I thought it was kind of weird that people were like, "Oh yeah, she haunts also Paramount Studios," and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah, that is weird. Zach,
uh, Zach, we need
we
you,
need answers. We need answers.
please." Also on that same thread, my one of my favorite parts of the studio tour is when, which they actually didn't point it out last time and it made me kind of sad. Typically the tour guide will point out Alfred Hitchcock's office
Mm-hmm.
that has his little silhouette on the door. um I didn't realize that Steven Spielberg was actually given Alfred Hitchcock's office when he first started working
What?
for Universal. That became his, like, because he was becoming a big director, they were like, you can have Alfred Hitchcock's office, which is amazing. Like, that's such an honor to be able to have
Mhm.
somebody's, office like that. But apparently Alfred Hitchcock is a menace.
Oh, his
Because
ghost?
yeah, his ghost is a menace. Because he would not leave Steven Spielberg alone ever. Like every time Steven was in his office and he's like, I gotta get some work done, there would be a ton of strange noises, or when he'd leave and come back, stuff would be moved. And it was like super frequent enough that Steven Spielberg went to Universal Studios and said, "Hey, can I have a different office because I'm not getting anything done." And I don't know if it's Alfred or not, but I really need to like focus. And so his Alfred Hitchcock's office is still used for stuff. It's just not anybody's like working office.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's just like him, like Alfred giving Steven a little like, haha, now it's all on your shoulders. It's no longer on mine. I can do whatever I want now. I don't know. Maybe he just wanted to be a menace. I have no idea. But I thought that was funny. I thought it was funny that Steven Spielberg was scared enough to be like, "Hey,
Hey,
can I
get me
have
out
it?"
of here.
Yeah, because can you imagine how awkward that would be? Being like, "Hey, like I know you gave me the office of Alfred Hitchcock, which is amazing, and I love it. But can I have a different one?" If I was that person, I would have been like, "No, you got to stick with that one. Deal with
Yeah,
Alfred."
sorry. That's the rules.
Yeah.
You don't have to enjoy
Yeah.
them. You just have to follow them.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. Um, but yeah, I'm like, I love that. And again, they didn't point out his office the last time we were at Universal. And I'm like, no, you gotta do it every
I,
time.
no.
No. And then let's see. The next one I have, this is the one that like maybe it's real, maybe it's not. But I had to include it because it has to do with mine and Casey's favorite ride at Universal
The
Studios, which is Revenge of the Mummy. Um
Simpsons. Oh.
there is one about the Simpsons, so we'll get to that in a minute. But the one about Revenge of the Mummy is apparently there is a little boy haunting the mummy.
Why?
I have no idea. This is the one, this is where I kinda go, "Mm." Um, a lot of people speculate that it's possibly a child actor that died on the lot, and it's just where Revenge of the Mummy is built now. Um, I don't know, I've never heard of any child actors dying on set, but I also imagine they wouldn't really advertise that back then either. Um
Probably not.
But, apparently a lot of people, like, enough that it got some attention were, like, at the beginning of Revenge of the Mummy, when you're first going down and, you high five the skeleton on the ceiling,
Yes.
apparently there would just be a little boy standing in the middle of the track, like,
Oh my
literally.
god.
Yeah, and so people would be screaming, like, stop the ride," as they're, like, cruising along, and a couple of times, apparently, the cast members did, and then, like, ran out there, but there was nothing, and so they were like, "That's weird," but it happened more than once, which is a little freaky.
Yeah, that is
Um
weird.
But yeah, nobody knows who he could be. He's dressed like he's from the early 1900s, so that's why they think maybe a child actor. It
Mm.
could also be maybe the child of like a crew member, like somebody brought their child to work and their child was where they were not supposed to be because safety regulations weren't really a thing at the beginning. Like they're a thing now, but they weren't really back then. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that basically a lot of these, it's the lower lot that's haunted. And I guess because that used to be the original
Yeah,
movie
like the
studio
original.
lot.
Mhm.
whereas like
That
the
makes
upper
sense.
stuff not so much. Because there's also apparently one that they think might be the same ghost that haunts a specific Halloween Horror Nights maze and also the Studio Scoop, which is the ice cream shop in the lower lot. Um, they don't know. Again, nobody knows like what this ghost is from. Some people speculate maybe it's one of like the first crew members from the first Halloween Horror Nights. But he likes
Mm.
to scare people.
What
But
a little
also,
mischievous ghost.
yeah, but also the thing that makes me skeptical is because people only report this during horror nights, and I'm like,
Hmm.
I think ghosts do it all year round, not just for a certain time of the year. Um,
Unless he was
but
like a scare actor,
well, that's what they're
and then
thinking.
he's
That's why a lot of people think. But I'm like,
oh
that's kind of like, I still think that's a little weird. But I mean, I'm not a ghost, and I don't know any. I'm just taking my knowledge from Supernatural.
yeah.
Just taking my knowledge from the Winchesters. But yeah, he likes to scare people. He likes to kind of just hang around and frighten people. One of the stories I read was that a cast member, a scare actor, was in a designated area and he was supposed to be the only scare actor in that area. But when he turned to his right, he could see somebody else in costume scaring people. And he's like, oh, that's weird. I thought I was going to be the only one. So he went over to like say, "Hey man, how's it going? Like, what are you gonna stick to like this area and then I'll stick over there. What do you want to do?" And then like as he got closer, the scare actor like saw him and then kind of started walking away and then just kind of like vanished. So I'm like, "Ooh,
He's
that's
like, I don't want
weird."
to talk to you.
Yeah, he's like, "Please," which I mean, same. Also, don't talk to me. Um, but yeah, so they think the one that's in the Studio Scoop might be the same person because the two areas are so close together. But apparently in Studio Scoop, he likes to move items and then randomly open the freezer and then slam it shut multiple times, and then also rearrange the ice cream in the freezer. Which maybe he just really misses ice cream. Maybe
Yeah,
that's all
maybe
because
he's just
I would also miss ice cream.
yeah, he just wanted some ice cream. That's all he wants.
Yeah, yeah. Um, there was another one again, lower lot. It's where all the ghosts are. But you know that lower lot store? I think it's currently the Super Mario, like where you got your sipper the one time with the like
Yeah.
popcorn
Hmm.
stand on the outside. It used
Yes.
to be just a regular like little studio store. It didn't have a theme.
Hmm.
But my favorite is apparently one time somebody was getting chewed out by a Karen. They were yelling at them because they didn't have a specific product or whatever. And all of a sudden, a stuffed animal of some kind came flying off the shelf and hit the lady in the back of the head. And everybody was so stunned that she literally just like turned around and left. But they have no idea like what threw it, who threw it, what was happening, and I'm like, I love a ghost that is ready to fight the Karens of the world for me.
Yeah, they're like, don't you talk to her like that.
Yeah. So I'm wondering maybe it was like a past like uh employee. They were like, not on my watch.
Yeah, they're like, I'm dead. I can do whatever I want now.
Yeah.
I'm not on the
And
clock.
yeah, and a similar thing happened in the Jurassic Outfitter store, except this time somebody had seen the ghost and they said it was the ghost of a little girl. They didn't
Hmm.
really give like much specifics, just that it was a little girl and she was knocking shit off the shelves and laughing. Which honestly, if I were a ghost, I would also do that. Because who's going to stop me besides
Exactly.
maybe the
Like you're a ghost.
Winchesters?
Who cares?
Yeah. Like, what are you gonna do? Kill me? Ha! I'm dead.
Yeah, exactly. What are you gonna do?
um, let me see. Okay, one more. It's kind of like it's gonna literally be our bridge from the lower lot to the upper lot. And that is there's apparently a ghost haunting the escalators, which
I could see that.
is a weird place to haunt, but also does make sense. The Apparently two different security guards have had the same interaction with this ghost, in that it's after the park closes, like everybody's supposed to be like moving up, and they see somebody at the top of one of the escalators. So they like go up to be like, "Hey, you need to leave." And then by the time and if you've never been on the escalators at Universal Studios Hollywood, they are very steep. So most of the time, you actually can't see people standing at the top, like when you're on your way up.
Yeah. Yeah, because
So
they're
they,
very, very tall.
yeah, very tall, very steep, can't see it. So by the time the security guard would get up to the top, there'd be nobody there. And he'd be like, "Oh, okay. So they've left. That's cool." And then turn around, and that same person was now at the bottom of the stairs.
Freaky.
Yeah. And it was just like a shadowy figure, like nothing super definitive. And so one guard would go like he went back and forth a couple of times. I was like, "What the heck is happening?" But it is weird that like two completely different people at two completely like different times had this same interaction in the same area.
Yeah. Yeah, that is freaky.
So, yeah. Um I mean, I guess if you're a ghost, you don't actually have to take the escalator. You literally just like boop right to the top. So maybe, I mean, maybe it is a good place. I'm always afraid of falling off of the escalators because
Same.
they're so
Same,
steep.
because that is a long, long drop to the bottom.
Yes, yes, it is. And then our final little ghost story, I think, is it my final one? Yes, it is my final one. Because Casey so nicely mentioned The Simpsons, which is our favorite ride
Our
of all
favorite.
time. Apparently there is a little girl. I don't know what it is with little girls and haunting Universal Studios Hollywood. But apparently there is a little girl haunting The Simpsons. Again, they say she's kind of in old timey clothes, so to me, it's kind of weird that she would be haunting the Simpsons area. But I mean, like,
Yeah.
to each their own. But she also likes to be a menace to people and just like freak people out by like running by them or sitting there giggling in the corner. But also, what I thought was kind of weird is because this sighting of this little girl ghost, not only since The Simpsons has been open, but also since Back to the Future.
What?
So
So
it's
she's been
not
there
like
for
a
a little bit?
recent. Yeah, so she's been there for a hot minute. I don't know if she was there before that. I don't know what was in that area before Back to the Future, cuz I always thought it was ET, but ET apparently is where the mummy is. Um so I don't know if there was anything there before or what, because it's the
I
top
think
of the
it was.
hill,
I
so
can't remember what it was though.
yeah,
But I'm pretty sure there
something
was something
weird.
there before.
But yeah, so apparently she likes to haunt Universal. But those
Huh.
were all the ones I could find. Honestly, the Lon Chaney one I think is the one I've heard the most, but also
Hmm.
sounds the most plausible.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I believe I have heard the Alfred Hitchcock one. I was watching something with Steven Spielberg, some kind of interview or something, and I think I remember him mentioning that. Um, but otherwise, there hasn't really been a ton of like ghost sightings. So we need Zach Bagans to get in there for sure. We need a
Yeah.
complete
Zach
like
Bagans, we need answers right now.
yes.
So if you hear this, um, you can just send us a DM and we'll give you a little
Mhm.
shout out
Mhm.
and we'll come with you
Yeah, we'll
and it'll be
meet you at
great.
Universal and we'll have a great time.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Um but yeah, so I'm kind of surprised there hasn't been more ghost stories coming out of especially a theme park in general. I
Well,
feel like there's
especially
so
yeah.
many creepy happenings in public places like that, especially ones that are still active studio lots like Universal is. Um So I was kind of sad not to find more. So anybody listening, if you know of some more good Universal backlot stories, let us know. Or rumors. I love a good rumor. Um
Yeah. A
like I
conspiracy.
Yeah, I think my favorite theme park conspiracy is that Walt Disney is frozen, his body is frozen, and
Mhm.
underneath the park, specifically his statue in the park. I do remember, I think it was in high school, the rumor, it wasn't his whole body, it was just his head, was rumored to be frozen and in underneath the park, underneath his statue. I
I
don't
could see
know
that.
why, like, specifically his head, because you can't really, like, extract any of, like, good ideas or anything out of it
Yeah.
because, I mean, that's just not how it works yet, but maybe that's what they're saving it for until we
Maybe.
have the technology to
Technology.
dissect his brain and get good ideas out of it, but, I think that's my favorite theme park conspiracy. Um,
That's a good one. Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. But leave your conspiracies down below. I would love to hear them. We love a good conspiracy, especially when it's so good that you go, maybe, maybe,
Right.
and then
Possibly.
yeah, and then you lay in your bed at night and you go, you know what? It's totally true. It's not a conspiracy. But that was all of my monster fun facts. I wish I had more for you because honestly, I think because like hardly anything was documented back in the day unless it was
Mhm.
huge. We just don't get any stories like that. But I do love Frankenstein. I do love a lot of the original Universal movies. So good. If you haven't seen any of the original films, I know they're black and white, but trust me, they are very good. They are very cheesy by today's standards, but you got to think of the times and how revolutionary it was.
Absolutely. And you
Um,
have to think that this is what paved the way for
yeah.
all of your movies today.
Mm-hmm. Like FNAF.
Like FNAF, absolutely.
So we hope you guys had a great time here on the podcast. We are enjoying our extra spooky season this year. Um, Next week's episode, theoretically, should be Supernatural, the show related, depending on how fast Casey finishes
Theoretically.
season one.
Yes.
If not, then we'll have to do some rearranging. And so next week's episode may turn out to be probably one of the creepiest ones that we're going to do this season. So make sure to subscribe both to wherever you're listening to the podcast, but also to our social media so that you will know when things go up and what they're about. Um, I'm doing Spooky Week. I keep saying Spooky Week. It's not Spooky Week. It's
Spooky
Spooky
month.
Month. Over on Yield YouTube channel, I'm making my way through the original Resident Evil game. And we'll hopefully have some other spooky things happening over there. And I think that's all I have to blab at you. Casey, do you have anything to?
I do not. I think that was a good little fun fact about Universal. We love a good fun
Yeah,
fact and we love Universal.
we do. We do. And with that, we will see you guys in the next episode. So bye.
Bye.